Namaste everyone. Let us start this symposium by invoking the Divine Presence, who is the source of all knowledge.
तत्सवितुर्वरं रूपं ज्योतिः परस्य धीमहि यन्नः सत्येन दीपयेत्
A warm welcome to all our participants and viewers to the 8th edition of Vaichariki. Vaichariki is an initiative taken up by Rashtam School of Public Leadership at Sri University as a part of the 150th birth anniversary of Sri Aurobindo. The purpose is to facilitate dialogues, discussions, and exchange of thoughts with an aim toward intellectual enhancement and spiritual nourishment. As is beautifully explained in this sloka, Vidya dadati vinayam, vinayat yati patratam, patratvat dhanamapnoti, dhanat dharmam tatah sukham. That is, knowledge gives humility. From humility, one attains character. From character, one acquires wealth. From wealth, one acquires good deeds. And then follows happiness. The 8th edition of Vaichariki is titled Religion, Conflict and Spirituality, Sri Aurobindo's Thoughts. Religious animosity, as we all know, is perhaps the most common form of conflict. Human societies have been fighting among themselves on religious grounds since time immemorial. All the landmarks in history, like the killing of the pagans by Roman Christians, the history of crusades, the riots between Protestants and Catholics, the animosity between Islam and Judaism, animosity between Islam and Christianity, between Christianity and Judaism, between Hinduism and every other religion, the idea of Ghazwa-e-Hind, the rampant riots during India's partition, the genocide in Kashmir, all these incidents are all the examples of conflicts predicated upon the idea of religion. It is ironic that to note that the word religion, which traces back its root from the Latin word religare, meaning to bind, is the cause of so much bloodshed, suffering, and division. It is high time that we move forward from the idea of organized religion towards the realm of spirituality, where mankind may find peace, prosperity, and brotherhood. Sri Aurobindo writes that the highest spirituality indeed moves in a free and wide air far above the lower stage of seeking, which is governed by religious form and dogma. It does not seem easily bear their limitations, and even when it admits, it transcends them. It lives in an experience which to the formal religious mind is unintelligible. With this, I would now like to welcome Dr. Sampadanand Mishra, who is a professor at Rashtam School of Public Leadership, Rishi University, a scholar of Sanskrit and an ardent disciple of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, to give the opening remarks. Welcome, sir.
Namaskar to all of you and welcome to this 8th chapter of Vaichariki, which is going to be focused on religion, conflict, and spirituality. And we all know today, and today we experience that every religion is at risk, every religion. And it is not by bringing any reform in the religion that we will have solutions to the conflicts arising because of the religiosity, it is by going deep into the very depth of spirituality that we can have a solution, not by bringing any reform on religion. Ultimately, every religion has to vanish. There has to exist only one religion that should be the religion of humanity, which is missing in every aspect of religion. And in today's session, we will discuss about the different conflicts, the different issues related to religiosity, and try to evaluate it in the light of Sri Aurobindo. And we have really knowledgeable experts today for the Vaichariki, the 8th chapter of Vaichariki. We have Swami Brahmadev ji from Auro Valley Ashram. He is the founder of Auro Valley Ashram in Rishidwar. So I welcome you, sir, for giving the keynote address. We have Praved Malik ji, we have Amit Gujaralgi for the panel discussion to be moderated by Lakshmi Saripalli ji. And I expect that we will have a very fruitful discussion, and I request all the participants to attend it with all attention and then participate in it actively, and do ask your questions and share your thoughts at the end of the keynote and the panel discussion. Once again, a grand welcome to you all, and looking forward to a very fruitful discussion today on this very important topic: religion, conflict, and spirituality. Dhanyawad.
Thank you, sir, for giving the opening remarks. Now we will move on to the keynote address. For this, we have a speaker who himself is a personification of wisdom. Swami Brahmadev ji is the founder of Auro Valley Ashram, which is an international center for inner ecology and spiritual studies, situated at the foothills of Himalayas in Dehradun, Uttarakhand. After having graduated from a law school and obtaining a degree in economics, he traveled the Himalayas in the quest of truth. He has also traveled across the entire country and is well acquainted with the diversity of our nation. After having searched everywhere, he found his answers in the teachings of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. I welcome you, sir, to please grace us with your pious thoughts on this issue.
Namaste. Thank you for this opportunity. It's a pleasure to share some thoughts. Actually, I still not able to understand what is religion, what is spirituality, and what is all this mystery of life. Only I have some fire inside me burning to know. And with that, the journey of my life is still going on. Actually, life is the most important subject. And now little bit what I can say, I am able to understand that it is a process of divine manifestation everywhere in everything. And we are also part of it. Every seed has its own process of evolution journey. And according to that, things are happening and everything is moving. I started with my ignorance, with my confusion, what to do with this life and how to live it. And then a process started, a search started, and in that search, so many experiences, so many up-downs, so many kind of hard, soft, good, bad things happened. And through all that process, always something is becoming clear, always something becoming more and more, bringing me more and more near to myself. And there was a time when I was knowing what to do with this life, what to do, what for I live. And then a journey started. In Indian tradition, in which family we grow, born, always from the childhood we are listening that if you have something like inner, this kind of feelings that who am I, why I am here, what for this life, and mostly this information they feed in us that go to the Himalaya, go to the caves and do tapasya, and then God will come to you and ask you what you want. So that way, a journey started. I went to many places, like without knowing what to do. So then you will go to the ashrams and temples and all these things. So everywhere, all those experiences of temples and these ashrams, they gave something. They gave some information, but clarity not came. The inner was not satisfied with that. So many religious things, so many rituals, so many kind of very beautiful things. But the inner satisfaction was not there with that. But inner aspiration was very strong. And then in those days, I remember that a very like a super frustration, super miserable situation. Sometimes it looks like what for we are living, better to finish this life and liberate, get rid from it. And with this kind of inner feelings and thoughts, one day I came in contact with one person and I asked him that, please, I have no place to live, what to do with this life, if you have any, if you can help me, if you can do something. So he said, okay, I'll take you one place and you can see if they can help you or they can keep you there. So that was the Mother and Sri Aurobindo ashram in Haridwar. And there I first time come in contact with Mother's Sri Aurobindo's picture and their literature, some words. And I don't know what happened with that. Immediately something, the whole being start dancing with that, start feeling peace with that, and start feeling that like you discover something, like you find what you was looking for. And from there, the inner journey started. A journey started, and in that journey, always when I was reading Mother Sri Aurobindo, and every time more clarities, and inner start feeling peaceful, joyful, blissful. I don't know it is a religion or it is a spirituality, but I find that this is the meaning of my life, this is the purpose of the life, and now life is only for the divine. And actually, in the deep in my heart, I was feeling that I am in love. Love. It is like a love awakens, love opens, and this love is for the Mother, for Sri Aurobindo. And with that love, things start happening. I went to Pondicherry. First time I come in contact with this Auroville, the Mother's dream of Auroville. That dream of Auroville make me mad that I start feeling that how this kind of thing should be somewhere in the Himalaya near Ganges. And then another journey started to make a place like Auroville in the Himalaya. And I don't know what was this madness, but slowly this madness also become clear that this is not my madness, this is something with some very clear visions and very clear inner feelings that this is mother's work, mother's dream, mother wants something, and mother, I always start feeling that mother is always with me. She's always with me, and she's like a guiding you, showing you, asking you, speaking with you, everything like a, without no any doubt and no any duality in anything. And with that aspiration to find a place, and we started this Auro Valley. And Auro Valley is a laboratory where life is preparing you for work, preparing you for manifestation. And now, for me, religion and spirituality and everything is a mother. She is my religion, she is my spirituality, she is my life. So I never get confused myself. I never confuse myself with this, that I am religious or I am a spiritual or I am a child of the mother, and she is doing her work. And how all the times be with the mother, remember the mother, offer everything all to the mother. And in this process, it is not a very easy, like everything is happening very easily. It is a real Mahabharata. And when we use this word of Mother Sri Aurobindo's integral yoga is a real inner and outer Mahabharata. When you face so many situations, because we have to live in this world of falsehood, in this world where nothing is so simple and easy, where for everything you have to fight, you have to work hard, you have to face situations, you have to meet all kind of things. And in that moment, one thing becomes clear, that with the contact of the mother, always in my intentions, the only mother exists. Always in all the moments of life, mother is there sitting. And all the moments of life with mother start making everything possible. And it is surprising that how just only with that, put the mother in your intentions and live with that. That is integral yoga for me. And that is my spirituality. That is the secret of all the religions also, spirituality also, that keep the divine in you, keep the divine in your intentions, because life is a movement, always movements, and all the movements, they are carrying some intentions. And if the divine is in those intentions, if the mother is in those intentions, then they know what they want to do with this life. And that way, slowly, things start happening. The whole world start coming to Auro Valley without any propaganda, without any, it's just a mouth-to-mouth contact. And life start taking me everywhere for mother's work. And the thing is, Till now, the Mahabharata is continuing. There is no any end of this process. And this is the beauty of integral yoga, that it is a constant, unending process. There is no any full stop in it. Every day with something new is waiting for you to face. Hard, soft, good, bad, all. And that is the joy of this. And with that joy, mother's work, divine work, and now is going on. And the thing is that now the only thing which is important for me to always keep your intentions very, 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 very pure, very, very good. Because intentions carries your attitude. And your attitude is creating all the possibilities. And if we can check all the times our attitude and our intentions, and we can feed consciously in our intentions and attitudes what really is clear in you, then nothing is impossible. One can make everything possible. And that way, Auro Valley is growing, my spirituality is growing, my life is moving and living, and one thing more, that integral yoga gives us the meaning of life, and integral yoga give an opportunity for everyone, those who want to live this life. Because there is a saying that 1 in millions lives. And if 1 in millions lives, then what we are doing it? So many people, what they are doing it? So, Mother Sri Aurobindo, they changed the mode of our life. They put us in the living mode. They liberate us from the surviving mode. In surviving mode, life prepares, but it is a long way, long journey. But in living mode, when one is living, then everything starts unfolding automatically. In living mode, the process of manifestation becomes more fast. Their life is it is a progressive manifestation of the divine in matter, in us, in everything. So in living mode, this process, the speed of the process of our evolution change becomes better. And that way, this is the grace, this is the blessing, this is the work which mothers love. They do it. They put our life in the living mode. They liberate us from all kind of worries and hurries and all kind of thinking of what will happen to me and how I will live and what will do with me. So with living mode, they give us wisdom and freedom, and in that freedom things happens. And once life starts living with wisdom, that is you can say, is the nature of spirituality. Spirituality grows with wisdom. Life can grow only with wisdom. And that wisdom comes when one is connected with oneself, or when one is in the hands of some higher forces, those who connect you with yourself and liberate you from all that darkness, ignorance, whatever, and give you the wisdom. And with that wisdom, when one lives, one never feel lack of anything, one never miss anything, one never feel lonely, one never feel that one is alone. And that is spirituality for me. That is my religion, that is my spirituality, that is my everything. All is divine and all is for the divine. And slowly, slowly, this kind of clarity, this kind of vision starts growing, and it is so easy to face the life, to meet the life, to face situations. And that is my little bit understanding about Sri Aurobindo's mothers, about religion, about spirituality. So, for me, how to all the times remember the mother, remember the divine, and offer everything to them, and just live with emptiness, live without any planning and any kind of ideas or any kind of thing, just always empty in front of them, and they are doing everything through this process, through this box. And now, in Auro Valley, people are coming here from everywhere. We not teach here anything. We not even try to do here anything, but things happens. And this Auro Valley is a school of learning, actually. And here learning is, one is learning, when one is here, we give them atmosphere, environment, and I tell them, you live with yourself and learn from your living. The real knowledge that comes from our own, when we start living with our own experiences. And learn from living is the idea, is the purpose of Auro Valley. Come here, live here, and life will unfold and give you all the knowledge of you, and just exist with that, live with that. Now the thing is that in this process, automatically the level of understanding, the level of consciousness, the level of knowledge, the level of awareness, they automatically slowly becoming better. And that gives joy, that gives peace, that gives bliss, and that bliss is also for the for the mother. That everything is only for the happiness of the mother, for the so, and that way I'm living, and that is little bit what I know about spirituality and life and me. I told you. If anybody has any questions, we can speak about that.
Thank you so much, Swamiji, for sharing your life journey with us and telling us how the teaching of Sri Aurobindo and the mother transformed your life. You also told us and emphasized upon the fact that religion, spirituality, or any other thing is a manifestation of the mother for you, and that and in that you emphasized that one should offer everything to the divine, your all actions, all expectations, all result, and then you will always have the power to go forward. You also said that to keep the intention pure was the idea. But I would like to ask you one thing, that suppose I am doing all of this, but the other person or the other community starts behaving in a way that your existence is all bogus and you need to be killed. And in such a situation, what is the course that one can take to save one's own self. And I'm talking this on a very physical plane, like how to save myself in this physical realm in such a scenario.
The first thing is that one should have a patience, lots of patience, and not in a hurry, not with the impulse to just react immediately. Control on your reactions, and with full patience and full faith in the divine in you. You know, in our tradition, we learned that always you see in our all gods, they carry in both hands. In one hand, they carry the flowers, in the other hand, they carry the weapons. So according to the need of the time and situations, use. Don't be attached with the violence or non-violence. Whatever is needed, according to that, get ready to face everything, face all the situations with that. So religion and spirituality is not that. Spirituality is not, we learn from Lord Krishna that you should be ready to face the life with, not to not to become a Napunsak. That moment you see that Krishna said to the Arjuna, please don't become a Napunsak. So, if anything which is you feel, you think that is against anything, one should be ready to face that, to reply that. For me, violence, non-violence, both are equally important. So, because I told you, I'm fighting here. I'm in a Mahabharata from many years, 24 hours, even till now. Inside Mahabharata, outside Mahabharata, we are living in asuras, in always, everywhere around, selfish people, greedy peoples, and so many things are there around. So we are not living like a cows to, okay, come and do whatever. So always face them with your sincerity, with your good heart, for the goodness of everything, and life will give you courage and everything, and things will handle. And that is from the very beginning. We see that how this fighting is going on from so many years. It is not a new thing. From the beginning, things are happening like that. So, but not to not very much. The thing is that few things makes us weak. One is our ego and the other is our selfish greediness. So whenever you are in the Mahabharata, liberate yourself from your ego. Not ego should fight, and neither your selfish motive behind is fighting. You are fighting for the truth. You are fighting for a good cause. So that way everything is fair in that. Okay?
Ji. Thank you so much, Swamiji. And another question I would like to ask moving forward, that it is a very good thing that you said, but do you also see a possibility that these conflicts, any possibility that they will end in our own lifetimes, or maybe in a century, or maybe in 150 years or so? Any possibility of these?
The divine designed this game without any full stop. It is a journey towards infinity, and everything is a part of the process of evolution. Because we have a very limited knowledge to understand many things. We have very limited consciousness to understand many things. We always want the things should happen the way we want. But the divine is very intelligent, nature is very intelligent, they are doing their work perfectly. So I think we are moving towards betterment, and end is very good, and end means that we are moving towards, according to evolution, according to Mother Sri Aurobindo, towards perfection, towards betterment. So let us hope for the best. And the thing is that, yes, when we see things outside which we not want, and the other thing is that the negativity is so strong in us. But the other side is we have positivity also inside us. How we see with our positive eyes all the negativity outside. When you start seeing with your better consciousness, with your positiveness outside to all the negativity, then negativity will disappear. So sometimes it is our lack of understanding, a lack of consciousness, a lack of seeing the things which create something, big things outside. So the fault is always inside us. Fault is never outside. Fault is in my vision, fault is in my understanding, fault is in my seeing, how I relating the things, how I'm seeing the things. So there are big powers in our positiveness. The sunlight burns all the darkness in seconds. So the positiveness in human being is also, our spirituality is also something, a big fire, big sun. And once this sun will more and more become more, automatically this darkness will disappear.
And one more thing that you said that everything is moving towards evolution and we are constantly evolving. So in your view, do you see that we have evolved so far and that conflicts, though rampant and happening all across, have decreased in their magnitude like they used to happen before and like they are happening now? There is a significant decrease in the magnitude of such conflicts.
I think things are becoming better. We are moving toward betterment. And because of the media now, when we see the news and media and all these things, then we think that the things are growing more and more. But the things from the very beginning, there was a period when there were much more. If you see the history, there was much more conflict, much more bad period was there. But if we compare, this period is much more better. Life is becoming better. The world is becoming spiritual. World is purifying. World is becoming much better. If we stop seeing media and news and all these things, 1 month, don't see any media and don't look any news. And you will feel that everything is normal. But now we do not know how to listen, how to see the news, how to react. So then what happens, even little bit news comes and break our balance and we start thinking that, oh, it is horrible, world is horrible, things are happening horrible. But the other thing is, this is a period of transformation. The new forces, what Mother Sri Aurobindo described, those forces, they are very active. It is same like when you clean your room. Sometimes we clean our room, so many dust comes out, so many dust start, when you broom your room, all the dust start coming up. So it is like that. Now many forces, many active, and they know that how things are transforming, changing, and those who are not want to change, those they are making noise. They are doing all kind of things, but this all is for the betterment. All is for the good. This is a beauty of, I think this is the golden period on earth. Because now is a big hope that world is becoming better and there will be a paradise or a divine life on this earth. And that message gave Mother Sri Aurobindo. And we should, with patience, cooperate and collaborate with this.
Thank you so much, Swamiji, for such positive note on on the idea of these conflicts, and we hope that things become better and better with time. I would like to ask our participants if they have any questions, they can come forward and ask.
This is Nilima. Namaste, Swamiji. So nice to see you after so long. I was reminded of sitting in the satsang in Auro Valley and listening to you answer questions, and your incredible ability to simplify all these big, difficult scriptural knowledge and reminding us that when we are looking at the conflict in religion, to go to the Mahabharata and the Gita to say you're here to fight the good fight, the Dharma Yudh. So my question to you is, can you give us an example of how you have had to fight a Dharma Yudh? Give us a real example. I would love to hear.
I started with my madness, with my aspiration, with this that there one day, with this that there should be Auro Valley in Himalaya. And you just imagine those days, I was not having even a place to live. I was asking to, one day I asked to the divine, please, if you give me one potato, ek aloo bhagwan ek aloo de karo. That was the period when nothing was there to stay, even not to eat or anything, but there was a fire which was taking everywhere. So in those process, in that time, and this aspiration that to make a place like Auroville, and now things start happening, and we got the place and everything and all these things. And I told you, we are living in a system of falsehood. In that system of falsehood, nobody understands your feelings, nobody understands your vision. Even the government, they have very limited visions. They cannot understand that there should be somewhere like Auroville, or they're not able to understand what is mother's vision and all. So now, in that situation, when you have a big land for this, okay, land came. So now land came, then you have to face situation with the land mafias. Government is also a mafia. So all this, with all those, when you start facing them, then in that Mahabharata, you feel very clearly that how the nature, the mother is preparing you. It is a preparation period. Before, I was thinking that it is a big problem, or it is a big something. But slowly, whenever any hard situation, problem comes, before I was having a different attitude or feelings to face them. And now I feel that this is not a problem. This is another opportunity God is giving to learn, to grow something. And that way, always till today, facing situations, facing problems. So it is an endless process. And I think now Mahabharata is not a Mahabharata. It is a process of the evolution. It is a process of our journey. It is a process of manifestation. It is a process of our progress. So Mahabharata, with what attitude you face? Mahabharata with the fighting attitude, Mahabharata with a playful attitude. So when we face the Mahabharata with a playful attitude, it becomes a game, it's a play, and when we face the Mahabharata with a fighting attitude, that it becomes a battle. So in battle, the things are hard, but in the playful attitude, things are just, it is a play. So I think in life is constantly a Mahabharata, and Mahabharata should be always there, because beauty of Mahabharata is the more Mahabharata, the more inner knowledge comes out. It is the Mahabharata which give birth to the Gita. If there is no Mahabharata, the Gita never came out. So when inner Mahabharata starts, the inner knowledge of life starts coming. And that clarity make you strong and give you courage, strength, everything, grow your faith, confidence, trust, and one able to face everything easily.
Swamiji Pranam, you very lucidly, nicely mentioned about surviving mode and living mode. And what I believe that we should try to, Allah may not reach that living mode, but we should try for that living mode. And there also we mentioned about we should learn for that living mode, which ultimately leads to wisdom and spirituality. So I am curious to know what can the different sources for those learning.
The sources of learning is actually your sincerity, your aspiration is a source. In living mode, the inner growth starts. In living mode, one is more living inward, moving inward. In surviving mode, we are always outside. In surviving mode, one is always progressing outward, outside. In surviving mode, you can become a very rich person, your name, fame, everything. You can have many things. But in living mode, your inner grows. Your inner becomes vast. In living mode, the inner development, inner growth, that happens. And we have to live with the inner growth. And with that inner growth, when you comes out in the world, then outer problems, outer things, they looks very little, very small. Then nothing disturbs you and nothing breaks your balance. So, and how to change the mode, for that, either it is divine grace, either you learn from the observations, either you learn from your life experiences, and that way one can change the mode of life.
Okay, so thank you so much, Swamiji, for giving us such wise words of wisdom and the important message that one should always remain playful and joyful in this and unattached in this Mahabharata of life. So with this, I would like to move on to the panel discussion. And let me introduce to our audience and participants, our panelists who come from very different areas of expertise and experience. But the thing in common is that all of them are the disciples and devotees of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. We have Dr. Praveer Malikji, who has been developing a unified theory and mathematics of organization over the last 3 decades. He has written 18 books related to this to emphasize a whole system approaching integrating individual, organizational, economic, social, environmental, and evolutionary dimensions. In recent years, he has been intimately involved with computer modeling of complex organizational, economic, and world systems to help different stakeholders practically navigate and understand possible futures. We also have Shri Amit Gujaralgi. He is a graduate in marine engineering, but then he switched over to the fashion industry more than 3 decades ago. He has been a seeker for a higher meaning of life and existence since very early childhood. His search would always run into some same brick wall of exclusivity. Every school of thought would lay claim to the truth, which would always beg the question that what kind of God or creator would reveal it to a very select few people and to the exclusion of the rest of his creation. More than 2 decades back, he stumbled upon the synthesis of yoga by Sri Aurobindo, and the lines, all life is yoga, and that yoga is practical psychology struck an immediate chord with him, which made him feel like homecoming. His life has never been the same since then, and since then he has been guided by these lines into the life of integral yoga. For moderating the event, we have Dr. Lakshmi Saripalliji, and she is an alumni of Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. And after having obtained her PhD in 1989 from the Department of Physics, she has had a long research career in astronomy with specialization in the study of activity associated with black holes located at the center of galaxies using telescopes across the world. In 2020, she moved from an active scientific research at the Raman Research Institute, Bangalore, to pursuing her interests in Indic knowledge, and she enrolled into the year-long course on Sri Aurobindo's life, work, and teaching being conducted by the Rashtam School of Public Leadership at Rishihood University. With this, I would invite Dr. Lakshmi Saripalliji to take forward this webinar. Welcome, ma'am.
I'd like to begin by welcoming all of you to this panel discussion. We've just heard an amazing talk, Keynote Address by Swami Brahmadev ji, and it's an amazing start, and just feel very fortunate. Thank you for that. Yeah, so today is the Vaichariki platform that I've been invited to moderate on, and this is being conducted by Sri Aurobindo Studies for Human Excellence at the Rashtam School of Public Leadership at the Rishihood University. Now, as we've seen, the topic is religion, conflict, and spirituality, guided by Sri Aurobindo's thoughts. Now, we have with us two amazing speakers themselves, Dr. Praveer Malik and Sri Amit Gujaralgi. Now, both taking inspiration, as we've heard, from Sri Aurobindo and the mother, and again, coming from very diverse backgrounds. So this kind of, we can look forward to a very interesting, set of talks and a discussion thereafter. Just a few words from me, and I'd like to say that the topic is really a big topic, and something that everybody is being touched by. They are kind of concerned, and they'd like to find solutions. And I really I should say at the outset that I'm really not qualified to be saying much about this, except, like everyone, to say that we all would like to live in a society that is kind of peaceful, living amicably, and solving its problems. But then these problems are inevitable, and they always come up in any society. And the key is, how do we proceed? So we all discuss at in our own ways at home, in groups, in colleges, in schools. But then we see the problems always continuing, and they always have been around. So now it's easy to get disheartened, be pessimistic, but that really doesn't solve it. Solve the problems. And again, I think, as we've just heard, and humanity is, despite everything, is going on. It's evolving. It's creating ever new creations. And today we see the full force of science and technology that we are all embedded in, for good or bad, but we are evolving, and very energetically so. Now, so my view, just a few words again, is that we are dealing with really complex matters when it comes to societal issues. There are just many variables that are involved. And my view is that, any solution coming from the mind level can only address a subset at a time, if at all. I feel that, it could work when at a deeper level, there is some sort of a uniformity to approach to life. But otherwise, the attempts that we make remain just that, the attempts. And I feel this is where perhaps we are in need of a different approach, one that can take in all the variables there are, really the big picture and the reality of what exists. So, and that's where our discussion is going to be focusing. As we know, religion is a big presence in most societies. And on the other hand, spirituality, the life beyond the body, emotions and mind activities, that's the domain of a few amongst us. Happily, we have the works of Sri Aurobindo. He's a luminary, a colossus that we can draw upon, who has himself lived through epochal times and seen conflicts and disturbances. What better than to have his works, his panoramic vision of human existence to draw upon and bear upon the ways that we make through these times of conflict. What I thought is I'll just leave you with two quotes before we get on with our two speakers. they're both from morality and yoga, and both are pertinent. And, maybe we can draw something from it. So I will quote War and Conquest. We're talking of war in this excerpt, but on a smaller scale, the conflicts that we see. War and conquest are part of the economy of vital nature. It is no use blaming this or that people for doing it. Everybody does it who has the power and the chance. Each is pushed by the forces that use the minds of rulers and peoples to fulfill themselves. Unless human nature changes, no amount of moralizing will prevent it. The other, I quote, destruction in itself is neither good nor evil. It is a fact of nature, a necessity in the play of forces as things are in this world. The light destroys the darkness, and powers of darkness, that is not a movement of ignorance. It all depends on the character of the destruction and the forces that enter into it. All dread of fire or other violent forces should be overcome, for dread shows a weakness. A free spirit, the free spirit, can stand fearless before even the biggest forces of nature. Unquote. Here I have to admit to being a novice in this field. I'm a new entrant, and I'm still actually grappling with the shock of not having come upon Sri Aurobindo's works until recently. It's been a happy discovery for me, and I feel truly fortunate. It's also been wonderful to come upon a world in India and elsewhere of Sri Aurobindo inspired lives, having met and connected with many scholars, thinkers, and followers of Sri Aurobindo. So here I'd like to invite our two panelists to give their views on the topic of our discussion. May I begin with Dr. Prabir Malikji?
Yes, thank you. Of course, thank you, Lakshmiji. It's really an honor to be here. And I'd like to also thank Dr. Sampad Nanda Mishra for inviting me and for a very inspiring talk by Swami Brahmadev ji. So, I should say a little bit about myself before I launch into this. I attempted twice to stay in the Sri Aurobindo Ashram, once for a 1-year stint in the Delhi Ashram and a 3-year stint in the Pondicherry Ashram. But both times I was thrown back into the world and had to go through various paths and I think just increase my experience with things and observations of things. So what I'm going to say today is basically, it's inspired by my interpretation of Sri Aurobindo. The book that I've studied the most has been Savitri, and I've been a student of that for about 30 years. But having been out in the world, there's an interpretation that has arisen naturally for me. And today I'm going to share thoughts on this topic by essentially going into first the structure of stability, then talk about the structure of conflict, and then offer some thoughts on religion and spirituality. So the seed thought, when I begin to think about structure of stability, I'm drawn to an old legend. And in that legend, in some true or great reality, perhaps depending on which part of the world you come from, you may call it Satchitananda, or you may describe it as being filled with omnipresence, omnipotence, omniscience, omniharmony. But in that reality, there was an urge, according to this legend, for these components of one truth to explore themselves through some manifestation. And confident in their own power and grounded in the sense that they knew everything, they began their separation from that source. And the more they separated from the source, they became more and more the opposite of what they were, and plunged into something very, very different than that original reality. And that plunge into something very different became the opposite of what we understand as omnipresence, omnipotence, omniscience, and omniharmony. But that also became the basis of the beginning of this entire manifestation. So the seed of stability, we can say, is in a sense related to these four aspects. And this legend goes further to say that when divine love looked upon what had been created due to this separation, there was concern, and something of divine love plunged into this base of the complete opposite of what it had been. So instead of omnipotence, there was complete weakness, and there was complete fragmentation, ignorance, and complete disharmony. And so love plunged into there. And then the question is, when love plunges into that, what begins to happen materially? And we see many manifestations of this fourfoldness that structures matter and life. So we can talk about space-time, energy, gravity. We can talk about the electromagnetic spectrum. We can talk about quantum particles, atoms, cells. And I'm going to just spend a minute on each of these to indicate how that relation or that stability of these different layers of existence have come into being. So when we think about this conglomerate of space-time, energy, gravity, which happens all together, we can think of space as being a vast arena of many different kinds of seeds of possibilities. And if we think about what the nature of this arena of an archetype of possibilities is, we can see in that nature something of knowledge. So space is capturing that sense of omniscience, the possibility that exists in space. Now, when we think about time, we can say that whatever is contained in these seeds that animates space through a process of relative time, against all odds and against all kinds of oppositions, yet whatever is in the seed will manifest, which means that whatever is occurring in time is related to this sense of power. And this journey from being subtle in a seed to becoming more material, to express the form that was in the seed, is the process of transformation of energy, which we can say is related to this idea of omnipresence. And yet, when we look around at life around us, we will see that there's a relationship between seed and seed and seeds and seeds. Everything has an implicit harmony in it. And therefore, we can say that this idea of gravity is, in a sense, a vehicle of that original power of omniharmony that existed perhaps at that layer of Satchitananda, that then began through this plunge to express itself in a different way. So the point being that when we look at the structure of stability, we see that all four of these aspects that I may call presence, power, knowledge, harmony, have to coexist, and they're bound together by this plunge of love. If love did not come into this manifestation, then perhaps, you can think of it as a magnet. And if you look at a magnet and if you lay fillings around it, it'll create, in a sense, concentric patterns that weave out. And so love coming into the manifestation also draws out these layers of fourfoldness that create an embryo in which everything else can begin to happen. So stability, we can say that from an evolutionary perspective, stability has to become more and more complex. So the initial manifestation of the stability is as that macro parameter that we call space-time energy gravity. And then we become aware that within that, there's the electromagnetic spectrum. But if we think about what the electromagnetic spectrum is, again, from this idea of fourfoldness, we know that the electro aspect, we already know that it's related to this idea of power. The magnetic aspect is related to the idea of gravity or harmony. Let's just call it harmony. But then we also know that there's a vast range of frequencies or wavelengths within the electromagnetic spectrum, which point to different type of implicit archetypes that will be leveraged in different ways, that point to an implicit leveraging of knowledge. And when we think about the electromagnetic spectrum, there's also an implicit mass potential that exists within it. So again, we see this fourfoldness that provides what we call the electromagnetic spectrum stability. And I would hypothesize that this stability wouldn't exist again without the anchor of love that plunged in and caused that thing to come up so that manifestation could progress to more and more complexity. Now we get to areas, so these are perhaps, maybe we call the pre-material basis for stability. And now when we look at matter arising, and if we look at the structure of quantum particles, we know that all quantum particles can be structured into 4 categories, known as quarks, leptons, bosons, and the Higgs boson. And if we look at the nature of these quantum particles, we can surmise that quantum particles is a carrier for this property of knowledge, or is a vehicle for expressing gradually that thing that we call omniscience. And why do I say that? Very simply, if we consider an atom of silver, which has an atomic number of 47, we know that that atomic number is due to the number of protons in the nucleus. And we know that the protons themselves are made from quarks and only by quarks. So we have a sense right away that quarks are related to this idea of being a vehicle for knowledge. When we think about leptons, which is a second category of quantum particles, and we think of a key lepton, a surrogate of that, which is an electron, then we know that the release or the capture of electrons is accompanied by vast amount of energy or display of power. So we can say that lepton is, in a sense, the carrier of this idea of power. When we think about bosons, they are the quantum particles that combine together all other quantum particles. So the implicit in that is the idea of harmony. And then when we think about the Higgs boson, any quantum particle that has mass has to get it from the Higgs field through the interaction of the Higgs boson. And therefore, we know that the Higgs boson would be a property or a carrier of presence. So again, we see that all quantum particles that are the base of any matter that's going to arise themselves are structured by this implicit stability that is due to love being surrounded by this fourfoldness. So we're getting a sense for the structure of stability that we would envision would occur again and again. Let's just look at a couple of more levels. If we think about atoms, and if we study the periodic table, we will see that the 108 known elements in the universe are structured into S shell, P shell, D shell, and F shell. And if we think about what constitutes or what are some representative atoms in the S shell category, we'll find atoms like hydrogen and helium. We know which power suns. So they create nuclear fusion. So they're implicit, have the property or are vehicles of this massive amount of power that can be expressed. So we already get a sense that S shell is a carrier of this power. When we think about the P shell, we have archetypal elements in there that represent different parts of the periodic table. Plus, we have known elements such as silicon and carbon. Silicon, of course, which is the base of all computing machinery, and carbon, the base of life that evolves into mental life. And so we get a sense that the P shell is a representation of the, or a vehicle for this idea of knowledge, the implicit property of knowledge. When we think of the D shell, we have workhorse elements such as whether iron, nickel, copper, cobalt, and so on, that are used industrially and that create the infrastructure around us. So we already get a sense that it's a carrier of this idea of presence. And if you look at the F shell, this is the experimentation at the atomic level of atoms that are relatively massive in size. They have a very high atomic number, which means that they're an experimentation in harmony. You know, how many neutrons, protons, electrons can you have together and still remain stable? So you're already seeing that this idea of F shell is capturing this property of harmony. And again, we can hypothesize, or we can see that this layer of stability that then is going to animate all molecules and all matter as we know it is formed by love, surrounded by presence, power, knowledge, and harmony. And when we think about any living cell, then we will find that in any living cell, be it plant, animal, or human, there are 4 molecular plans. And these molecular plans we know as polysaccharides, proteins, nucleic acids, and proteins. So, you know, but if we think about the nature of these, the protein is, in a human cell, there are over 30,000 different proteins, and they are workhorse elements. You know, all the activity, all the movement in the cell is facilitated by proteins. So you get a sense already that this is the carrier of this power of presence or service. Nucleic acids are the cell's libraries, and you get a sense that there's the carrier of knowledge. Lipids create natural compartments in cells without which no harmony would exist, and therefore lipids become carriers of harmony. And polysaccharides provide natural centers of energy in cells, without which the cell would not be able to function. And therefore, we can say that it's a carrier of this idea of power. But again, if any of these, regardless of the level that we just explored, you know, whether it's space-time, energy, gravity, whether it's electromagnetic spectrum, quantum particles, atoms, cells, it's required that all 4 of these aspects operate as one. And they are bound by this nature of love. And if this love did not exist, and if any of these independent parts operated on its own, there would be complete instability. And that gives us a hint into the structure of conflict as well. So to summarize so far, you know, structure of stability is simply love surrounded by presence, power, knowledge, and harmony. And we will find, if we extrapolate beyond the level of the cell, that the human being, that culture, that civilization, we can also see is a more complex form of these 4 things in which more of the omnipotence, more of the omniscience, or more of the omniharmony, more of the the omnipresence comes forward. So whatever is meant by those words, the function that's embedded in them becomes more explicit as the complexification increases. Now, that's a summary of the stability. But the conflict, the structure of conflict is, again, in the absence of that love, or where any of the 4 elements begin to act independently. Now, I'm going to just draw on the example of a cell. We talked about cell having the 4 molecular plans, and I'm going to extrapolate that. Let's imagine that, you know, the cell is completely conscious, and each of these parts that are in the cell was at some time had its own consciousness in a sense. So proteins represent something, polysaccharides represent something, nucleic acids represent something, lipids represent something. And when we think about religion, we may say that, imagine that you are a participant in that life of the cell. And, as we know, there are, thousands and thousands of different entities within a cell. And imagine that there's some kind of protein that exists there, and the protein is facilitating always your movement from one place in the cell to the other. And pretty soon, when you look at that protein, you may think, oh my God, this protein is endowed with extraordinary powers, and there might be a sense of religiosity and worship and trying to put it up on a extraordinary pedestal. And then I look at a nucleic acid and I'll say, without this nucleic acid, the next generation of cells, imagine I'm generation 5 of a cell that's divided. And I'll say, it was that original cell where the nucleic acids existed in a certain way, and then the DNA split. And, if it wasn't for that original DNA, now there's avatars that have been created, and I'm in the 5th generation, and this is the great nucleic acid that, is in my vicinity. And so I can now get religious about that, there's another, there's a lot of infighting in the cell, and then all of a sudden you have these lipid compartments that emerge and separate the conflict, and everything becomes harmonious. And you'll say, what an extraordinary power this has. Let me worship it. Let me just put it on a pedestal. And so it all becomes something more than what it is. And then similarly, the polysaccharide functions in a certain way, and parts of the cell will get enamored of that and start worshiping all the energy that they feel from when it comes near where they are situated in the cell. And all of a sudden you have this beginnings of different religions that have occurred or appear in the cell. But if you look at it and the structure of stability with the love surrounded by all 4, then you see that these different things are nothing but faces of one truth or one reality that expresses itself, that needs to express itself at this level of manifestation through 5 apparently different things, but it's one thing. But the conflict arises because we've lost the sense of that oneness and have somehow become enamored of the separate piece and believe that to be holding truth that other parts don't have. And so that becomes then a model or structure for conflict due to this religion that has arisen within the environment of the cell. When one thinks about spirituality, then it's that connection, it's the idea of beginning to see how things are merged, how it's all connected, how everything is a different and unique face of the one thing that is behind it. That gives a sense, a visceral sense for what spirituality may be. But also if we consider this whole idea of something from an unmanifested truth reality that we may call Satchitananda, that of course relates to omnipresence, omnipotence, omniscience, omniharmony. If we consider that then manifesting as space-time energy gravity, manifesting as the electromagnetic spectrum, manifesting as quantum particles, manifesting as atoms, as cells, then becoming from cells different tissues, from different layers of tissues, of different kinds of tissues becoming different organs that then animate a whole bunch of different life forms. But yet you see that the similar fourness is all in it. Then you get a sense for also the spirituality creating more and more expression of what it is at its core through these layers of additional complexification that continue to build on the previous layer. And that is, in a sense, this idea of the explicit materialization of something that's implicit, and the oneness of this implicitness becoming more one, even in the explicitness, is what, from this point of view, is what I'd call spirituality. But anyway, that's would summarize my thoughts on, again, on stability, on the structure of conflict, on the structure of religion within the context of a cell, and the idea of spirituality.
Thank you, Praviji. It's been, fascinating to me that you've been able to, take in so many scales, right from structure of the universe to quantum particles, and then you come to elements, formation of elements, and then to cells, and therefore you relate it to people, societies, and religion and conflicts. It's all encompassing, and we'll have interesting, ways to go between the two. You mentioned the centrality of love, and which provides the stability to structures, but you need that, as you say, all encompassing the four principles: power, knowledge, harmony, and presence. I really am fascinated, given that, it also touches a little bit upon, some of the work that I do, just using the different frequencies that you talked about as providing knowledge. And they do provide all the knowledge that you can capture. So yeah, let's, we'd love to take this forward, and thank you for that. I'd like to move on to talk, a few words from Amit Gujaralgi. Amitji.
Yeah, hi. Good morning, everyone, and a lot of gratitude from me to Sampatji and Swamiji for this opportunity to be part of this discussion today. Now, I am going to approach this topic from a perspective which is my own lived experience. Instead of drawing too much on academic knowledge. And at the same time, I am going to beg everybody's indulgence that I am going to be reading from prepared notes, because, my work schedule did not leave me too much time to do too much preparation. So I have prepared some notes, and I am going to be reading from them as I do dwell upon religion, conflict, and spirituality, and Sri Aurobindo's thoughts. So, the first thing that comes to one's mind is that what is the difference between the two terms, religion and spirituality, right? For a long time, I used to describe myself as being irreligious but spiritual. And I could not, somehow this discussion has forced me to take a deeper look, even when we use those terms, that what is it that denotes religion, and where is the separation that happens between religion and spirituality. So now even a cursory search for the meaning shows up religion as a specific set of beliefs and practices followed by a group or community, while spirituality denotes an individual quest for a higher purpose or meaning, or reaching beyond the apparent physical reality to a domain that transcends it. If I go with these meanings, one also has to come face up with the fact that almost all recognized religions have their genesis in the spiritual seeking of an individual or a succession of individuals who were thinkers, seers, or prophets, and who have expounded a particular train of thought. Over a period of time, these thoughts found adherents who were content with the version of the truth presented to them by the original seeker or seekers. The human seeker was then supplanted by a bunch of adherents and unquestioning practitioners who were willing to accept and adopt another's realization as their ultimate truth. So this, to my mind, is the demarcation between religion and spirituality. For those of us who are content to accept another's truth as the ultimate truth that will guide us, are willing to accept a set of practices and rituals as a way of governing our life, I would call us as, religious people. And those of us who will question any established truth and want to seek a truth for themselves that will resonate with their own being are those who are stepping into a spiritual realm, right? Having established this difference between the two, one is minded of Sri Aurobindo and the mother. I mean, when in 1924, Sri Aurobindo had the great realization of the Krishna consciousness, and there was a moment, the mother says, where the entire ashram was in a great state of fervor, and you had the possibility of establishing a new religion, right? And at that time, they took a very conscious decision that why would they perpetuate the same mistake that humanity had been making before them? The need to turn away from a set of practices or a defined religion and this need to deify, that was very summarily, put aside at that time. And what evolved thereafter was a system of yoga which was meant for the individual, right? So each individual Aurobindonian, I mean, I would like to stress again, is a seeker in every sense of the word. We are all individuals seeking our own perfection, right? We, each one of us, represent a unique possibility. I mean, Praveen before me was talking about the role of quantum physics, right? And I think as with every electron, as with every particle in the universe, each one of us represents a distinct possibility, right? And at every moment in our life, we have a different opportunity. We are absolutely free in the way we evolve. And this evolution, for most of us, happens accidentally. But when by some act of grace, we stumble upon a teacher and we become conscious of this evolution and become participants in it, is when I feel our yogic journey or spiritual quest truly begins to take shape. Now, what, again, I mean, like, was, let's say, the problem with organized religion? I am minded again of, where Sri Aurobindo gives the example of the 7 blind men who were asked to describe an elephant, right? And each of them describes the elephant as whatever part of the elephant they managed to reach in their groping. And that is the essence of all human religions for you. Each religion is like the gropings of those blind men. You arrive at a partial truth, which is put out, and the adherents subsequently will accept that as the ultimate truth, which is not open to any further questioning, right? The truth, as we all know it, I mean, at least in my personal journey, was that every time as I started seeking at a very young age, probably even before my teens, was that every time I would come and delve into any school of thought, and I would come against this brick wall of something being the ultimate truth, or some magic mantra, or some magic practice, and something in me would recoil and say, no, this cannot be it. The truth cannot be exclusive. It cannot be the domain of a few people. God cannot be this being who has created an entire universe and then chosen to disclose himself all the way to himself to only a select few, right? And this was where my disconnect with religion on an individual level started. The search continued, of course, because there was a deep dissatisfaction with whatever I was encountering. And it was just a stroke of luck that I went to the Gnostic Center to enroll my own children in some summer classes. And while I was waiting my turn, I picked up the Synthesis of Yoga, opened the first page and read All Life is Yoga. And that is when, I could immediately sense a chord that this is somebody who is talking my language. That yes, if all life is yoga, all life is a way of reaching to one's creator, to reaching divine. Yes, this is what I need to delve into, to accept and adopt. Now, I was fortunate, or maybe, perhaps now that I look in retrospect, there was some inner preparation which probably had brought me into a state of readiness where I was willing to accept this kind of breadth of vision. Why is it that this is truth, or the possibility of this search is not apparent to everybody else in the universe? And the answer again to that lies in the fact that all of us are journeying at our own pace. We are all at different stages in our evolutionary quest, and knowledge is revealed to us in proportion to our readiness to receive it. I'm again minded of Sri Krishna in the Gita, where he says that in whatever form you approach me, I shall appear before you. So it is probably, I feel, maybe something in my past life experiences or in this life's experiences or in my search had prepared me to be able to abandon organized religion and go on to this quest, into this magnificent journey into the unknown, literally, which is Sri Aurobindo's integral yoga. Now, having, kind of split the two, religion and spirituality, right? One needs to come back into what is the genesis of conflict. Is it something that is inherent in organized religion itself? Or is it, as Lakshmi ji pointed out in her first quote itself, to do with the human vitality? And I am inclined to agree totally with what was mentioned in that quote. Organized religion is just one more form of identity that we attach ourselves to. We get born into various identities: a religious identity, a cultural identity, a linguistic identity, a national identity. And we can be as fanatical and as fervent as any one of them. And it is this inherent fanaticism and fervor which are the seeds of all conflict. As long as we are willing to look beyond identities and dive back into our inherent oneness, that to me is the only way that humanity will evolve from this zone of conflict. The conflict that we see around us is not a byproduct of a religion. It's not the byproduct of any other ism. It's an outer manifestation of our inner state, which is that the bulk of humanity today is really very wedded to its animal origins. We have moved very little from our animalistic behavior. You just need to scratch the surface and the animal leaps out immediately. We are, should that be a cause for dismay? I wouldn't say so. I heard the younger speakers before me asking if we are going to see the end of conflict in our lifetimes. I don't have an answer to that, but I would tell them to go back maybe 100 years, 200 years, 500 years, and see how much we have evolved, how witches were being burned at the stake in medieval Europe, what, 500 years back? Can you think of that being done today? You can't. So it is when, and I mean, change has to be gradual. There is no artificiality to change. You can't impel change. And change has to proceed from the individual into the collective. It's when enough people get disgusted with a certain way of being that you stop being that way. We've seen this in so many things, even within our own lifetimes, right? I go back to my grandparents' generations and I saw how much of, resistance there was to free thought, right? A family elder's word could not be challenged, right? Today, generations like us, we ask our children to be the best version of themselves. Now, that to me is evolution. And I like to think of myself as extremely optimistic where it comes to that, because if I look at all of existence behind me, I know evolution is the natural state of the world. We are going to be impelled towards it. To the extent that we are going to do it consciously, it will happen without pain. To the extent that we are going to resist that evolution, we will face conflicts that we see around us are just a manifestation of that same pain, that resistance to move towards that oneness, that ultimate ideal of what I would say, in the Vedas, right? That plane of consciousness, which is described as Satyam, Ritam, Brihat. It has to be all based in the absolute truth. It has to be dynamic, free of all time. It has to be Brihat. It has to be vast. It has to encompass all. And it will happen, I'm sure, because that is the nature of our own being. We will reach there. I don't know how many lifetimes. Definitely not in our lifetime, and not in one lifetime, and not probably all together. We are, each of us, unique on our own journey, and I don't know how many lifetimes each is going to take to reach that, but that is the destination we are all destined to reach. That's it. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Amitji. It's really giving a beautiful, picture of how we can come to have this wide vision, which you were, mentioning that why is it the domain of just a few? How can we, get it? And then you came to this that we all have our own pace at which we arrive at it. It could take several lifetimes. Now, there are these two, both of you have come from such different angles, and there's a lot that we'd like to correspond between the two of you. Praveerji talking of these structures and their stabilities, and Amitji, you talking about people and their evolution and coming to this wider and getting beyond the identity. So, I would actually offer you both to ask each other questions coming from these different angles. But I have your point to kind of discuss with you too, that you mentioned that, religion is something that you said is, having a smaller set of principles you accept of somebody else's, you don't question them. And then spirituality is, of course, going beyond that and being, having that wider. But at the same time, you mentioned, as I just said, that we arrive at these, levels of maturity, I would say, at our own pace. So do you think that, religion does have a place? It is a process in our evolution. It is kind of giving us experiences which again teach us. And so we would not say there is no place for religion. What would you say? And I'll come to Praveer after that.
Lakshmi, I definitely feel that every religion has a place in the human evolutionary journey. I mean, it is only, our limited understanding and probably our moral standpoints which, make us weigh one against the other, right? But to me, it's very clear that everything that is manifested is with the divine will. Even what I consider to be, let's say, I would hate to use the term abhorrent, right? But even behind that, I mean, my conditioning today would compel me to see what is it within myself that is shrinking from what I'm finding abhorrent in another thought system, and to widen myself. I don't think rejection is the way for the spiritual seeker. It is always one of widening. So every religion, even those that are responsible for a lot of conflict and violence today, I feel form an essential part of the journey of our manifestation. They needed to bring out something within the collective human consciousness, something that needed to be addressed, right? So in saying that all religions are aspects of the truth, I still maintain that. There is a lot of positivity in every religion. Every religion also has a lot that has necessitated reform. Some religions, the older religions have reformed more, right? We are seeing today a lot of anguish in the world with very militant Islamism, right? Now, for me, it's the infant amongst all the world religions, if you look at it, right? I mean, if we look at what Christianity was up to 300, 400, 500 years back, is what Islam is doing today. You had whole cultures and civilizations which were wiped out because the Christians felt that was their moral duty to propagate and expound their thought process. You're seeing it today with Islam. You might see tomorrow with another thought process. As long as we have these isms and we have people wedded to that consciousness, you will have this vital need to propagate, to preserve, to subjugate. You're acting from your vital. But yes, I do insist that religion is an essential part of human evolution. There are no shortcuts. From the proton to the electron, to the cell, to the tissue, we have evolved and we will continue to evolve till we reach our Satchidananda.
Nice, thank you. Yes, so Praveerji, do you think religions have their place and, they are kind of a preparation for everyone?
Yes, Lakshmiji, I do think that religions have their place, and, of course, it's most powerful at the time of the whether it's an avatar or whether it's the guru who's central to that way of being. That's when I think a religion tends to be most powerful. But if it's a living thing, then it can continue through generations. If that experience that the religion is really pointing to, or that way of approaching the divine, or the one divinity that's behind this, these are religions are all different faces. So if that's there, if it hasn't been lost, then of course religion remains a very important aspect of things. I'll also say very practically that having worked on several continents, and mostly in the US and in India for several years, and I've come across people in the workplace who are of different religions, and one can see that there's a spirituality that exists in these people. It doesn't matter what religion they really say they're part of, But if there's something, if there's this sincerity, if there's a deep seeking, then already something different comes through them. And whatever practices they have in their religion, if there is the sincerity with it, then already veils are broken, so something different comes forward. So
absolutely, Prabhuji. Yes. Before we get to this sincerity and that speaks across barrier, before we come to that, you related the cellular level to religion, and when we speak of religion, and it's wonderful to hear that they have their place. There is a rigidity of unwillingness too, although there have been reforms. How do you think, I'm just out of curiosity, how would you bring about, or rather relate cellular level your thinking to rigidity? And the second question is, it's a hopeful question, saying what's the time scale or which you would think rigidity might kind of give in and let it evolve to this wider consciousness.
Yeah, if we look at any of those molecular plans that I had focused on at the level of the cell, of course, there's a vast amount of development that's gone into them that has taken billions of years. So right from the quantum particles to atoms to the formation of molecules. So there's a lot of intelligence. There's a lot of kind of implicit understanding, in a sense. There's an expression of some unique functionality that comes forward. So, of course, there's a place for rigidity, because that shouldn't be lost, in some sense. I mean, that uniqueness that has expressed itself through its own journey, it remains something valuable. And so the question is, how can these different uniquenesses really accept other uniquenesses as well? Because so when we think about rigid, if we're saying that it's just my point of view that's correct and nothing else is correct, that's one kind of rigidity. And that is going to cause conflict, and then conflict itself has its place to break down that rigidity. Ultimately, that's what's going to happen, because whatever rigidity exists amongst these different functionalities, if they remain just rooted in that point of view that theirs is the only thing, then the conflict will force them to give that up sooner or later, and they'll become something different. But if there's already within that uniqueness, or the way that rigidity has come about, the openness to really be the function that is being expressed through that uniqueness, truly be it, then the rigidity means nothing. It's just a structure by which it maintains its physical form. That's all.
I'd like to come in here as well, Lakshmi, on that. And this is again now from the a psychological point of view as to what we describe as rigidity is also, the maintenance of form, right? Which, if you go down even to the teachings of the Mother and Sri Aurobindo, the necessity of the ego till a certain stage of your own development where you are developed enough to be able to offer something to the divine. So structure, any structure, is an imperative for, to be able to develop it to its full potential before you offer it to the divine. So even what we, in our judgment, from our, let's say, mental, moral judgment, to say that something is inferior or superior, these are functions of our mind. To the spirit, to be able to define a structure, to take it to its luminous perfection, that is the journey of evolution. And Sachidanand could have stayed as the all. The fact that it chose to manifest, Praveer gave one beautiful legend. You have the legend from the Rig Veda itself, where, you know, in the beginning there was the one, he felt alone, he needed another, therefore he created the other, the otherness of him, right? So the otherness of him, the creator, is also a divine impulsion. And every possibility, every atom, every electron is part of that possibility. And that otherness has to maintain itself till it has achieved its evolutionary purpose. So I feel that even for every religion, no religion per se is bad. It has a luminous end to achieve. And I think for the adherents of every religion, that is their task cut out. There's nothing wrong with being religious. There are people who, in abandoning religion, abandon everything altogether. And I see a lot with youngsters today. They've stopped being religious. They're not spiritual. And they are therefore fruitless, right? So there is nothing wrong with religion per se. It is with our attitude, with our intentions. As Swamiji said it, we have to be mindful of that and see that our practice of our religion is actually towards what it is meant to embody of the divine.
Beautiful, thank you. I see that we have a few questions. Neelabji, how are we going with the time?
Ma'am, we have half hour left for the discussion. You can take all the questions.
So let me read out one of the questions, which is from, let me begin from the beginning. Yes, Vikramaditya. So the question is, people often say that this is your truth, this is my truth, this is your conviction, and everything is just perspective, and nobody knows the truth. Is it so? Are there no fundamental truths which don't change, no matter the perspective? So I would, I mean, either of you could take it up.
Yeah, I'll offer a thought here. You know, I think that to see your quote unquote truth, one has to be at the level to see it, And so, for example, if Sri Aurobindo or the mother, they have a different vision, and I certainly myself would never be able to say that this is the truth or that is the truth, or I wouldn't feel qualified to do that. But if somebody has a right to do it, then it's a different story. So.
Yeah, so I think there is only one truth. And the fact that we are limited in our vision of the truth shows that we are seeing an aspect of the truth. So when we say my truth versus your truth, each is seeing a particular aspect of the truth. To be able to see the whole truth, we need to evolve in our consciousness to be able to be on that plane. And all of us, at least, I mean, we are very, very far from that ideal. It takes a very strong discipline. It takes a lot of inner widening to be able to assimilate the other's truth into your truth. And therefore, with each progressive widening, I feel that we come closer to the truth, but it's an unending process. So I can only say from personal experience, every time you feel any shrinking, you feel any distaste, right? Don't look at the other, look within to see where is it that you have failed to widen yourself to be able to appreciate that truth. Most of us, when we go back to the Gita, focus on the Karma Yoga, right? To me, I mean, I think given the state of affairs of the world and the amount of conflict that we're seeing at large, right? For me, the key statement is of Krishna telling Arjun that when you hate anything, you're hating my embodied form. I think if all of those, at least who profess to be guided by Sri Krishna, the Gita, and Sri Aurobindo, if we were to take this into our lives and to check ourselves every time we feel any hate, we feel any shrinking, we feel any discomfort, we need to remind ourselves that even that which we are hating or we are being discomforted by is a form of Sri Krishna. I think that will help us resolve a lot of human conflict.
Thank you for that. So the second question is from Surendra Kumar. Since there is evolution towards oneness, whether there would be one religion or no religion at the stage of that oneness. Yeah, I think we talked about it, but please go ahead, any one of you. So since there is evolution towards oneness, whether there would be one religion or no religion at the stage of oneness.
So I mean, to me, religion donates a particular set of beliefs, a set of practices, which distinguishes itself from the whole. It's a part of the whole. If you're looking at becoming the whole, I don't see scope for any religion at all. I think you would be the pure spirit.
Yeah, I would agree with that, that there wouldn't be a place for separate religions and that oneness. There may be different faces and there may be different manifestations, but there would always be a knowledge of the oneness in it. So,
I think this is a comment here by Dinesh saying, I feel that the discussion today is leading us to the fruition of Sri Aurobindo's fifth dream. I would like to know from Sri Amitji how this can be achieved in a comparatively shorter span of time and what should be our role in enabling that?
All I can say is, from my own personal experience, see within yourself as to the task that you have been given. Now, I'm going to share something. When I did my first course based on integral yoga, this was conducted, the foundation course for facilitators at the Gnostic Center. And I was asked what I wanted to work upon. And somewhere from within me, the word equality came up. And this was more than 2 decades back that I started working on equality. And, 2 decades later, I realized that that is still my key challenge of achieving equality through surrender, right? So to say that, as an individual, you see how slow the progress is. To be able to prophesize as to what the progress is going to be for a collective, I don't think it is in the realm of individuals like me, at least, to be able to prophesize that. But yes, I would say we all need to become conscious. We all need to become collaborants in this process of evolution. And to that extent that we become conscious and we start collaborating, we will definitely accelerate.
yeah, and I'm a little confused on what Sri Aurobindo's fifth dream is, whether that's the oneness of humanity or whether that's the evolution of humanity to the stage of supermind. I can't remember. So if somebody could just elaborate that, then I can respond to it. So.
Anyone?
Okay.
Fifth dream is evolution, the evolution of humanity.
Evolution. Okay. Yeah. So one thing I'd say very practically is that like Amit was pointing out, if I look at myself, there's a vast amount of disarray at any point. Just within myself, there's different parts that want different things, and just that process of unification around a central truth or the center of who I am is something that needs to occur, and if that can't occur within me, then certainly I can't play a part in anything else that may be envisioned. So that's the first step. But if I can do that, then and if everybody can do that, then I think things will go faster towards that. So
thank you, Praveerji. One last question, and more questions and suggestions are welcome, but let's go on to the next. Actually, the question by Dinesh leads to a few other more practical questions. We'll come to that later, but we'll take Nilima Bhatt's question. Can the speakers reflect on what is India's spiritual destiny for working out human unity? What is the need of the hour? How do we harmonize so many religions that are at different levels of evolution? Lovely. Yeah. Please. Anyone? We could start with Praveerji.
Sure. So I think that the very fact that your mother and Sri Aurobindo have come to Earth and continue to do their work here means already a huge step forward. And it means already that whatever apparent conflicts are happening on the surface, there is already some deeper work that's going on to integrate everything. I mean, that's a question of faith, but they wouldn't have come to Earth unless there was the possibility of this to happen very soon. And I think that the very fact of being here and continuing to be in the Earth atmosphere, and perhaps even in bodies that we cannot see, means that things will happen much more quickly than we can anticipate. And we won't even recognize the beginnings of when that new thing has happened unless we have the ability to see differently. So,
Amitji, would you like
I agree completely with Praveer on this. And I think, the advent of the internet, the spread of social media, the dissemination of knowledge, I mean, these are all tools. They are not accidents. They are propelling humanity towards a greater universalism. They are going to take us to a higher shared knowledge. I keep saying that I am an inadvertent optimist, right? And I am very clear that, I mean, there is no other option. Evolution will take us to the end. Either we will cooperate and collaborate with it, or we will go kicking, but we will reach there.
Thank you, Amitji. Actually, this kind of, corresponds to something that I had in mind myself, saying that, do we see signs of that already? And you answered that. Yeah. So there is a comment here by Dinesh again, saying the final dream was a step in evolution, which would raise man to a higher and larger consciousness and begin the solution of the problems which have perplexed and vexed him since he first began to think and to dream of individual perfection and perfect society. This is the fifth dream.
thank you.
Yeah, coming to questions leading on from a previous question of Dinesh's, I think that, so yeah, how do we grow, the numbers? Yes, social media, internet, talking like this across different groups and, helps. But can we have a way by which we can, make it more, reduce the time scale, like somebody said before we get there. Education plays a big role. And probably there are so many other ways to do this. So coming to education as such, what is I know there are different constraints. We've had the new education policy and so on. this thing that students at any age really, particularly in schools, can be, certainly everybody would agree that besides whatever it is that they're learning, what they hope to learn and what they hope to become, is so much more made so much more effective and possible if only they are able to see their mind and the way it works and their emotions. And there are simple lessons that can be introduced. And I don't know today what the situation is, but to my knowledge, I have interacted with schools, and I don't see it happening. The stress is on, academic achievements and, yeah. So either of you, given your backgrounds, how do you think we can, start introducing these without really perturbing the structure too much?
Lakshmi, I feel that the only way is to lead by example, right? And I think, especially where it comes to dealing with young minds and children, right? I mean, we've had 3 children, but even before I stumbled upon Sri Aurobindo, I was already Aurobindonian in my thought. So my only message to my children was that you're lucky, you're born to parents who can give you whatever you need, but we can't give you a dream. That has to come from you, right? And my children have each one of them moved into their own trajectories, done their own thing. And very often I would be asked by people that how could you give them that kind of leeway? I mean, my son at age 6 decided he was the next Maradona. And for the next 15 years, I was following all over the globe while he was trialing with different clubs till he ended up in an American university. Now, for an Indian kid where there is no football, to have decided he was going to be a footballer and then to have a father who would facilitate that. And I feel that that is how we, our generation at least, will play its role in evolution. We need to let free these young souls, believe in the divine's purpose in them. Unfortunately, we did not have that leisure and that liberty. Most of our decisions were taken for us by our parents and our family elders. So I would say, today, not just for India, but for the world, the youth have an innate wisdom, right? They are souls. They have come with a purpose. Let us learn to facilitate them in achieving that purpose instead of imposing what we feel should be their path or their journey or their means of development. So that's all that I would say, that as humanity, right, let's have faith in our youth and their ability to move forward.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And, I've learned from the school of hard knocks, having 2 sons myself of 20 and 24. And, as you said so well, each of them is entirely unique and different. And it's so easy to try and impose structure or to try and suggest, what they should be doing. But I think really the need of the hour is to create a system, the educational system that really allows uniqueness to flourish in the unique way that it's meant to. And so how do we not stop that journey? I think that's a critical thing. So.
So that's something to be recognized by the school bodies, just to keep that in mind while structuring their classes, keep some time aside to really get to know the students, spend time with them, other than just in a very formal manner of conveying a lecture or something. There is a question that's been, Govind has put up his hand. Govind, would you like to ask your question?
With your permission, I'll just read out a quote of the mothers, if that's okay. Can I read that? I think Lakshmi is okay. So I'll just read out the quote. It says, until the age of about 25, all I knew was the God of religions. God as men have created him, and I did not want him at any price. I denied his existence, but with the certitude that if such a God did exist, I detested him. When I was about 25, I discovered the inner God. And at the same time, I learned, and this is something that really astonished me, and I would really like to share this with people. This is once she has realized the inner God. She says, at the same time, I learned that the God described by most Western religions, and these are the religions we are here to talk about, basically, because we know these are the religions which we are having a problem with today. So the God described by most Western religions is none other than the great adversary. That the God described by most Western religions is none other than the great adversary. When I came to India in 1914 and became acquainted with Sri Aurobindo's teaching, everything became very clear. I just wanted to kind of share this because I thought it was relevant to the topic. Because, generally, at least coming from our tradition, we really tend to emphasize, the unitive aspect of religions and spirituality. But there is a rich tradition going back all the way to, the hoary past, which is also a tradition of distinction and very fine distinction, which is there in the Gita also, which very clearly says that the type of God also matters. The concept of God also matters. That while the Gita is saying Vasudevam Sarvamiti and all that, but it also says that depending on your consciousness, if you are a tamasic person, or if you are a rajasic person, or a sattvic person, or basically what kind of consciousness you have, you will end up worshipping a different kind of God. If you're a sattvic person, you will worship a deva. If you're a rajasic person, you will worship somebody who is a rakshasa or an asura. And if you're a tamasic person, you worship a certain different kind of a God. So I think this is something that we need to also bring into the discussion whenever we're talking about religions and why we are facing this problem. Because we have been preaching the message of unity and the message of brotherhood and the message of peace, since Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina and, everything, all since those time. But why is it for thousands of years we have been suffering so much at the hands of these religions? It's because their concept of God is completely different. And the consciousness from which that God emerges is a very different consciousness. Because while we are here trying to solve the problem of the harmony of religions, they are very clear that they are trying to solve the problem of our existence. Because from their perspective, from the perspective of their religions, the problem is that there are these other religions which are existing, which are anathema in their perspective. So that is a very different kind of a God and a very different kind of a religion. And we need to recognize that while we also understand that, that in Kurukshetra, both sides is Krishna, both sides is Vasudeva. But there is a distinction, there is a difference. The Kauravas are there and the Pandavas are there. And while Arjuna is constantly trying to figure out what is the right way and philosophizing and going back to discussing with Krishna, the Kauravas have no doubt. They are absolutely clear in their mission, what they want to do. And that is why we need to make sure that we are also very realistic. As Sri Aurobindo says in the essays of the Gita, that we need to have the courage to look at the world in the face and see how terrible it is and not delude ourselves that, everything is good and fine. That's an aspect, as Amit was pointing out, there's another aspect we need to actually keep in mind. And that is something very important to our existence, because we are going to reach a very ominous milestone very soon. Within a few years or in a decade, in the combined subcontinent of India, the number of Muslims is going to be more than number of Hindus. So once that happens, there's going to be a very different kind of kind of a dynamic in play. And in India also, the population is growing extremely fast. So while we may say that, okay, we need to transcend religion, but the moment that happens, something bad is going to replace something good, which may be something we need to transcend. But life, spirituality, sadhana is going to become exceedingly difficult if that happens. So we need to keep our eye on this aspect of the truth as well. And that's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Lakshmi ji, I would like to take that, please.
Absolutely, please.
Yeah. Govind, we can either say that we are submitted to the divine will, right? Or we can start exercising our own intelligence where these things are concerned. Now, I can tell you that it is my firm belief that every religion, every god or godhead has manifested because it is the divine will for that form to have manifested. There is no other. I mean, I cannot claim to be a Sanatani and then suddenly imagine that there is some other outside of that who is now my great adversary. Everything is within this one, right? Should it be the divine will that Islam will triumph? It will triumph. Should it not be the divine will? It will not triumph. At least let us, when we say that we are submitted to the divine will, have faith in the divine will. I feel that all these are parts of our soul journey, of our evolution. I mean, at times, I don't know what my past lives have been, but I've always felt that at some lifetime, I must have been a Muslim. Another lifetime, I might have been a Christian. Another lifetime, I might have been a Eurasian. I don't know, right? But I do know that every manifestation is part of the one. They're all part of this one journey. They will also evolve like we have evolved. Like I said, this is Islam today is a very young religion in comparison. Christianity was doing that 500 years back. Judaism was doing that before that. We have fought wars with Buddhists. We fought wars with Jains. This is part of human nature. Let us not get dismayed. Yes, to the extent that all of us can be better human beings, let's strive towards that. And believe me, I mean, I am not one to shy away from the ills of Islamism. I do not believe in the Gandhian ahimsa. As Swamiji said, yes, the Gita does teach us to stand up against evil where we see it. But evil is not necessarily emanating only from one source. We need to even watch for the evil within, right? So this is all I'm going to say. Don't get dismayed. Have abundant goodwill in your heart. You will, I mean, I have a workforce which is 80% Muslim. And I can tell you that forever, I mean, I've been working for 30 years. The rosas start with the namaz being read in my premises. The first plate of iftari comes on my table, right? They sit with me on the Diwali puja. All of them get the kaleva tied and they get tilak done. This is also a reality. My daughter's best friend happens to be a Muslim. She's like a third daughter to me. Every time she's been here, whenever we had Hindu festivals and my children are not there, she has conducted every ceremony with us. So these are, again, we fall into a trap of otherness. How are we any different? We say that this is an Abrahamic mindset. I think, unfortunately, what is happening, that even those of us who claim to come from a Sanatani background forget what are our Sanatani roots. The injunction of Krishna not to feel hatred for any embodied form. That is our role as Sanatanis. That is the message we need to take out to the world, not to become like that which we hate. So that's all I'm going to say. I know it is a matter of concern. It is a matter of dismay. Yes, but also we need to be mindful that there is a fringe within every religion. If we are not mindful of the fringe, we will have another fringe within Hinduism, and we see it. I mean, I keep thinking about that, God forbid, we were to achieve this so-called Hindu Rashtra tomorrow. Whose version of Hinduism would dictate what that Hindu Rashtra would be? Do you know how many differences there are within Hinduism? So like you're fighting with the Islamists today, you're going to be fighting amongst yourselves tomorrow. Oneness is a human ideal. Each of us has to carry that light within us and be very sure that that light will triumph. That's all that I can say.
Thank you, Amitji, for that. Please, Praviji, do you have anything to say to this?
No, I would rather that it end with Amit's comments. So thank you.
There are many other questions that come up, but again, I'm conscious of the time. I think we've had very nice discussions surrounding two very, coming from different angles. Just as a last comment, if not a question, it depends on the time, of course. I think, Amitji, you mentioned there's a triple Satyam, Ritham, and Brihat.
Yes.
As you're, saying, you kind of concluded with that as something that could take us to the times that we would like to see. Please correct me here, but does Ritham somewhere connect with Dharma?
So Ritham is in essence the dynamic aspect of the truth. Now, that again is the problem with religion, as we call it, is that the truth loses its dynamism. So you have an aspect of the truth, but let's say what was relevant in 2000 BC might not necessarily be relevant today. So you've lost the Ritham aspect of it, which, I mean, if you even read Sri Aurobindo's preface of the Gita, he says it's one of the very few Indian scriptures that he finds relevant even to modern times. So when we speak of Ritham, we need to understand that truths, I'm not talking about the absolute truth, but the manifested aspects of truth, they have to be dynamic. They have to be relevant to the time and realm that you are looking at them. Maybe something which worked 500 years back has no relevance today, which is why the highest aspect will always be Satyam, the absolute truth. It will be Ritham, it will be dynamic, and it will also be Brihat, it will be vast, it will encompass everything.
Wonderful. Actually, I had myself wanted to ask you this question, saying that today we would need to envision these principles in ways suited to the times. Any thoughts on these? And you answered them. Thank you. Niloji, would you like to, is that fine? Are we towards the...
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. If you want to ask one more question, you can go ahead. We still have some.
Yeah. Again, it comes to the practical aspect, and there is actually, if there's time, I can quote a few words of Sri Aurobindo here from the Human Cycle. I see there are two quotes, but so the first is, therefore, if the spiritual change of which we have been speaking is to be effected, it must unite two conditions which have to be simultaneously satisfied but are most difficult to bring together. There must be the individual and the individuals who are able to see, to develop, to recreate themselves in the image of the spirit, and to communicate both their idea and its power to the mass. And there must be at the same time a mass, a society, a communal mind, or at the least, the constituents of a group body, the possibility of a group soul, which is capable of receiving and effectively assimilating, ready to follow and effectively arrive. I think there's a lot in this quote of Sri Aurobindo's, and it kind of revolves around, last bit of our, discussions that we need to really look into ourselves and develop a community, I would think, of people. And again, the question always comes, how do we do this? How do we affect it? So on this last note of positivity, how do we bring about this? We need to grow a community of people that, are evolved. And I think there are ways, how do we nurture, how do we sustain such a community?
Lakshmi, I would again come in here and say that this has to proceed from the individual into the collective. And something that I learned again from the practice of another Aurobindonian was to start small, start within your circle of influence, right? And change people by the way you are. So, like I said, with me, my journey has been that of inculcating equality and surrender. I try to practice it to the extent that I can and to influence those in my immediate circle. Now, the danger with a larger community, again, is of setting up another ism or another cult, which will again close the doors on further evolution, right? And we will lose the rhythm aspect of that knowledge. So I think to keep this fluidity, to trust the divine, that as long as enough of us are working on ourselves, right, to bring in this change will happen.
Okay, nice. Praviji, anything?
Yeah, I would say that since the mother has already taken control of the earth, that she already works in everybody's heart and is making whatever changes needs to be made.
I would like to ask our keynote speaker, Swami Brahmadev ji, do you have words you could leave us with? Something that you could, conclude this.
Actually, the thing is that there's a quotation, change yourself if you want to change the world. So we have to start this change from ourselves. And the truth is that there is also, Sri Aurobindo said, where all truths meet together. So in Sri Aurobindo, all the truths meet together. And the other thing is, in this process of evolution, everything sooner or later, whatever exists in the time, it has an expiry period also. It expires. So we have not to very much worry for anything. Whatever is falsehood, it will expire, and whatever is the truth, that will stay, that will exist. So always hope for the best and always exist with your highest, best, sincere aspiration.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, yes, I think it's come to the time where we conclude this panel discussion. Thank you so much, my two panelists, Praveerji and Amitji. So we could just take it, we can just go on discussing, but we are, we have the time limit. So really enjoyed this session. I hope viewers too, found it, scintillating and encouraging, and there are some positive points as well, and things to look within oneself as well. So I leave it here and give the floor to Neelabji. Neelab, please.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So moving forward to the vote of thanks, I would first and foremost like to thank Swami Brahmadev ji for gracing us with his presence. His very life journey is an inspiration for us. I would also like to thank our panelists, Shri Praveer ji, who emphasized upon the idea of a connected nature of our life, and he connected it, the nature of life, with the nature and working of the universe. And he mentioned a very important point that the very existence of quantum particles are attestation to the fact that there is a divine and omnipresence. And I would like to thank Shri Amit Gujaralgi for emphasizing upon the difference between religion and spirituality. And he said that the willingness to accept others' truth as our own truth constitutes religion, and the willingness to seek out one's own truth constitutes spirituality. And then he also mentioned two very, very important points, that the truth cannot be exclusive to some people. The truth is a singular entity, and it is one for everyone, whether we can see it here and now or not, but we will have to seek that truth. And then the second point, that the change has to be gradual, and that it has to proceed from the individual to the collective. So thank you so much, sir. And I would also like to thank Dr. Lakshmi Saripalli ji for conducting this and moderating this panel discussion with such lucidity and professionality. I would like to thank Dr. Sampadanand Mishra ji for. Thank you everyone for joining us. We will meet for the next session very soon. Thank you.